Hello there, it's 4 minutes past the hour. This is GRTS News broadcasting live in our headlines this evening. The Minister of Gender, Children and Social Welfare, Fatou Kinteh presides over the official launch of the 2022 State of the World Population Report on behalf of the Vice President. Local Government, Lands and Religious Affairs Minister Sheriff Abassanya embarks on a nationwide familiarization tour. Officials of the multi-million-dollar Giraffe project say the initiative will transform the agriculture value chain into a more productive sector. Also coming up, a devastating fire outbreak has ravaged an entire shop in Dipakunda, leaving the owners in a desperate situation. Away from home, the Tunisian Health Ministry says it has suspended the use of Johnson & Johnson's COVID-19 vaccine following a recent warning by the World Health Organization. Elsewhere, the price of food and non-alcoholic beverages in South Africa rose by 6% in April compared to a year earlier. But those are the headlines. With me, Fatou Elika Mulushi. We have the news in detail shortly. Stay with us. This edition of the news with the Minister of Gender, Children and Social Welfare, Fatou Kinteh, who on Friday officially launched the 2022 State of the World Population Report on behalf of the Vice President. The event, attended by senior government and United Nations officials, as well as other development partners, was held on the theme, Seeing the Unseen, the case for action in the neglected crisis of unintended pregnancy. Baba Silla has the details.
Of unintended pregnancies rose to alarming levels during the global pandemic, and number keeps rising every year amid increasing call for action to address the issue. Over 2 million unintended pregnancies occur every year, and most cases leave women and sometimes teenage girls in serious consequences in the face of abuse and stigma. Mamadou Njai, the Executive Director of Gambia Family Planning Association, gave detailed outline on the state of unintended pregnancies and appealed for action to resolve the situation.
Looking at the recently completed DHS, the Demographic Health Survey, results have shown that unintended pregnancies have reached almost 18%, which is very terrifying and very worrying, part of which 70 to 80% affected young people. Thus, we can safely say majority of the victims of unintended pregnancies are coming from the young people. So as a result, to end this, we need to invest more in young people where they will be provided with adequate information and services on adolescent sexual reproductive health.
Each year, half of all of pregnancies, totaling 121 million globally, are unintended. This focus is of particular significance to the central pillar of UNFPA, which is a world where every pregnancy is wanted and every young person's potential is fulfilled.
New UNFPA country representative Ndei Rosa delivering a powerful message appealing for global action to solve the rising menace.
Unintended pregnancies are preventable if we empower women and girls to make affirmative decisions about their reproductive health choices and motherhood from childbearing age all the way to menopause. For this to happen, we must convince men and boys of all ages, traditional and religious leaders, the media, teachers, to name a few, the opportunity cost missed when we don't address the issue of unintended pregnancy. We must change our gender norms, gender and social norms, so that pregnancy is by choice and not by chance.
The Minister of Gender, Children and Social Welfare officially launched the report on behalf of the Vice President, emphasizing government's commitment to empowerment of women.
The theme for this year's report is timely and apt, especially amidst the global COVID-19 pandemic that has tested the healthcare system of all countries, leading to disruption of the provision of sexual and reproductive health services. In 2015, world leaders ratified the Sustainable Development Goals 2030, which is a scale-up of the Millennium Development Goals. Over the years, governments have invested and focused on a lot of contraception, the promotion of sexual and reproductive health, and setting up of a legal framework for the protection and empowerment of women of reproductive age and children.
Certificates were awarded to these young photographers using photography as a tool to report on gender-based violence and pressing issues affecting women's well-being. Bawasila, GRTS.
Now, the Minister of Local Government, Lands and Religious Affairs, Sharif Abbasanyang, has embarked on a nationwide familiarization tour. The Minister Sanyang and delegation had their first stop in the town of Essau in the Lower Nyumi district. Famrakanye reports that the minister had fruitful engagements with stakeholders in the area.
Abbas Sanyang, Minister of Local Government, Lands and Religious Affairs, accompanied by heads of directorates under his ministry. The high-powered delegation, including the regional governor of the North Bank and his technical advisory committee, were received by the chief of Lower Nyumi district, marking day one of a nationwide familiarization tour. The tour is a significant move by the ministry to unleash power to the right holders, ensure their full participation in the decision-making process, as well as replacing their concerns with solutions. The tour is a significant move by the ministry to unleash power to the right holders, ensure their full participation in the decision-making process, as well as replacing their concerns with solutions. The delegation conducted its first town hall meeting in the settlement of Essau. The interface on one hand allowed locals to raise their doubts and or concerns on issues such as continuous systems, selection of village heads, and environmental protection, whilst on the other hand, it also served as a good avenue for officials of the ministry to shed light on issues raised during the meeting. In an interview, Honorable Sanyang shared his strategic development plan with GRTS.
We are now making people aware of the mechanisms of selecting an alikalo in a community. It cannot be every Tom, Dick and Harry. It cannot be because you are wealthy, it's just because you are popular or whatever. It's because you are the indigenous settlers of the place. You are the founding fathers of the community. Unless those clans or those relatives are empty, nobody is having the right to claim. And unless they are incapacitated in one way or the other, then we could look forward to something and somebody else. But that's not a burning issue. Land in this country is the burning issue. It's a scarce resource of nature, and we are abusing it as a country. And we are abusing it as a people. We are abusing it as villagers, alkalis and villagers as stuff. So it's becoming more of a problem in this country. And this is where we are trying to derive methods and means to alleviate the fear of people in acquiring land, maintaining their land for their own homes. Everybody needs shelter. Be you a Gambian, are away or you are living, everybody needs land. Be you young or old, you need a home for your people or your family. So these are the categories in which we need to look at as a people and to make sure we maximize the availability of this scarce resource.
The issue of religious tolerance formed center stage during the meetings. The lands minister said his administration will work towards ensuring a highly religious tolerant Gambia.
Gambia is known for one thing, it has a religious tolerance. And the fate of this country have definitely helped us to believe that we need to do our utmost best to maintain peace and tranquility of every citizen of this country. And government have been embedded to make sure that they look after this, to make sure every citizen lives peacefully in your own country. We need to work together. Everybody needs to work together. We need to throw away all forms of sentiments, all sorts of feeling that is going to deprive our interactions, that is going to limit our interactions, and work together as one people, one family, to make sure this country will succeed in whatever we give.
A similar meeting was held in the Upper Nyumi district settlement of Jurunku, The tour, however, continues with town hall meetings in Jokadu as well as the lower and central Badibu district. For the news, I am Farmer. Honorable.
Now, the matching grant manager of the Giraffe project says it is earmarked for the transformation of the agriculture value chain from subsistence to commercial standards. Lamin Trawale made the remark during an interview with GRTS after a day-long awareness creation program with technical advisory committee members in the Lower River region. The Gambia government, with support from the World Bank Group, is funding the multi-million-dollar project. Here's an excerpt.
Component 3.2, which is co-financing productive private investment along the value chain. So this co-financing, it's in the form of a matching grant scheme, and in this we have a total amount of $9 million to be given to our prospective beneficiaries. And by these prospective beneficiaries now, we're looking at individual smallholder agricultural farmers, groups, and then small and medium enterprises. Going into the matching grant scheme proper, this is under component 3.2 of the Giraffe project, co-financing productive private investment along the value chain. So under this matching grant scheme, we have two windows. Window one, we're looking at individuals in the agricultural value chain, and then that is the 5 agricultural value chain that the Giraffe project is actually supporting, and they are rice, horticulture. In horticulture, you have mango as well. You have maize, cashew, and then poultry. So under window one now, we are targeting 500 individuals across the 7 agricultural regions in the country. And these individuals, the matching grant scheme can support them up to 500,000 Gambian dollars, which will represent 80% of their total investment. And then we will also want these individuals to contribute at least 20% as they are co-funded. So in essence, the matching grant scheme, to demystify it further, it's just a co-funding venture wherein the Giraffe project is contributing 80% and then individuals 20%. Have a company.
And now, a devastating fire outbreak has ravaged an entire shop in Dipakunda. The incident, which occurred on Thursday around midnight, has consumed everything in the shop belonging to Party Gay and Adam Asise. According to eyewitnesses, the inferno was caused by erratic power failure. Mohamed Kabir Mboub visited the scene, and he now tells us more.
Destroyed the entire tailoring shop belonging to Party Gay and Adam Asise, leaving them in a desperate situation. According to eyewitnesses, the fire was caused by erratic power failure, resulting to damages worth over $200,000 to the family. One Party Gay, a co-partner to Adam Asise, in an emotional mood, appealed for support from the government, NGOs, individuals, and other Samaritans to come to their aid in order for them to start their business again.
Liggéey nañ ba wàcc daal ba tëj suñu place ba dem di kër ga am jëm wëgg suñu nekk xamal ñu ni sa place bi ngi génnee safara.
We lost our properties and that of our customers.
Suñu bagage yi customer jëmmi place bi nga xam ne dañu ko luyee woon sax.
The only sad thing about it, some of our customers understand, whilst others did not.
Am na ci ñoo xam ni seeni bagage yàqu na bàyyi nañ te yàlla rek tax. Am na ñoo xam ni nag wax dëgg yàlla mënuñoo bàyyee noonu faaw ñu góorgóorlu jëm leen a fay rek soobu yàlla.
The victims also appeal to their customers who lost their clothes, to the inferno to understand them and exercise patience in this unforeseeable circumstance.
Paate suma partenaire la ñëw yu may ñëw dem di jaay yëpp si moom lay jógee daanaka.
Paate is my partner. The clothes that I used to sell is from Paate. And me too, I am a tailor. Since we started our business, this incident has never happened here. It's very hard with us. Some of the eyewitnesses, including Bella Ba and Abdullah Ba, both describe the fire incident as devastating, as it has consumed everything in the tailoring shop.
Ma ñu ne ma place Paate bi mu ngi lakka ma gis ne suma tëddee sax duma mun a nelaw.
Léegi si guddi fekk man ak benn xale ñu ngi toogu ma gis safara bi rek ma yónni xale bi ma ne ko dema oo borom bi atelier bi.
The business partners, however, thank the neighbors for their efforts in putting out the fire as they continue to solicit more support to start their business again. Reporting for the news, I am Mohammed Kabir Mbub.
An unfortunate incident there, but elsewhere, the Nematulai Women Federation in the Upper River region have handed over a piece of land to Roots Project officials for the construction of cold storage facility for women gardeners. The facility is meant to address post-harvest challenges faced by women gardeners in the area. Sedu Kamara covered the handing over ceremony, and he filed in this report.
Vast area of land has been handed over to Roots Project for onwards construction, meant for cold storage facility for the women gardeners. The land was provided by the Nematulai Women Federation. According to the Federation President Maria Masilla, the provision of storage facility will help address their post-harvest challenges, as most of their vegetables get spoiled even before get to the market. She, however, assured that the Federation will take ownership of the facility in terms of maintenance for sustainability purposes. The Regional Agriculture Director Karamo Minte and Aliu So of Nakofak, respectively, underscored the importance of the storage facility in the area. Minte and So said cold storage facility has always been a facility that women gardeners are yearning for. The governor of the region, Sambaba, described the project as timely, adding that the storage facility will go a long way to address the challenge women gardeners are facing in preserving their garden produce to avoid post-harvest loss.
Most of the women in Upper River region are engaged in horticultural activities, and based on that, most of their produce in the gardens normally perished, or sometimes what they do is they normally sell it at a cheap price. So that this is affecting them. So therefore, having the Roots Project, that you know that at least is a developmental oriented project that is geared towards improving the lives and livelihood of women and youth, decided to make sure that at least they establish 3 cold storage facilities as a pilot, and Upper River region happens to be one of the pilot. And today in Kerewan Badala, we are here witnessing the handing over of the land to the contractors for them to continue, at least, or for them to start work.
The National Roots Project Coordinator, Mahmoud Aliu Jai, urged the Nematulai Women Federation to take ownership of the project.
The importance of this cold storage facility. It is meant to minimize the post-harvest losses for the women gardeners, but also to put them in a strong position to bargain and negotiate good prices for their produce. When they produce, one of the weaknesses they have is they have to sell quickly, or else the produce might perish. So the cold storage facility is meant to ameliorate this challenge. As you also have mentioned, URR deserves special consideration because of the climatic conditions. Everyone knows it gets hotter the more you go east in this country. So there's a particular need for cold storage facilities in URR, but also in other regions of the country.
With this storage facility, it is expected the issue of post-harvest loss for vegetable produce due to lack of market will be the thing of the past, as women in URL will now have a facility to store their vegetables to preserve them. Said Kamara, reporting for Jatas News from Basse Upper River region.
And our global commitment to international relations and diplomacy is being tested with the ongoing conflict in Ukraine, dividing opinions in the international arena. Countries around the world often tailor-make their foreign policies to suit their interests. However, international relations and diplomacy continues to be critical players in bringing nations together and ending conflicts that have brought untold losses to the global community. The Gambia pursues a comprehensive foreign policy anchored on national interest and mutual respect. Well, for a brief look at Gambia's current international relations and diplomacy, we spoke to Mr. Esa Bokarsi, a former Gambian diplomat to the United States of America, on Newsfile.
Policy, I would say, is part of what the world is experiencing within the geopolitical and the geostrategic arena. I think nowadays we all know that to compare to physical geography, we have the earthquake and then we are all feeling the tremor. So this is not excluding any country. And I believe it calls for reorientation, it calls for looking inward, and it calls for beginning with national interest before thinking about anything else.
So how has the country used this foreign policy to advance its national interest?
Well, I have high regards for the current occupant of the seat, who is the Minister of Foreign Affairs. And then I think it is a question of synchronized efforts, because the custodian of the Constitution and then the driver of the foreign service of any country is the sitting president. And I believe it's not about single-handedly one person orienting the foreign policy of a nation. There is what we call synchronized efforts of expertise, synchronized efforts of diplomatic representatives within and outside the Republic of the Gambia. So I believe with an effective team, any country can become a champion of diplomacy.
So when we look at it, after all, is the Gambia actually realizing what is set out in the policy agenda?
Yes, it depends, because the policy agenda, whatever it is on whichever country, the beginning of it is national interest. Like they always say, diplomacy is based on reciprocity and interest. Well, you reciprocate interest, you know diplomacy. Well, it all goes with, it is guided by two, form and substance. The substance is the Hollywood acting of diplomacy, and the substance is where we discuss matters that will affect our interests internally and externally, and then be able to play and occupy the role we deserve on the geopolitical arena and the geostrategic arena.
That was former Gambian diplomat Esa Bokarsi there, but we're going to continue with diplomacy because the Honorary Council of the Republic of Cote d'Ivoire in the Gambia on Saturday inaugurated a new office at the Unique Solutions Complex in Fajara. High-profile dignitaries, including cabinet ministers and various honorary councils of different countries, graced the event. Sena Bujany was there, and she filed in this story.
Honorary Council to the Gambia, Papa Yusuf Njai, was joined by the Ivory Coast Ambassador to Senegal, Gambia, Mauritania, Cape Verde, and Guinea-Bissau, Sékou Touré, to witness the inauguration and reception dinner of the new office in Fajara. Residing in Senegal as the ambassador to the 6 West African countries, His Excellency Sékou Touré said he was delighted to witness such an event of high caliber. He also paid respects to the late Honorary Council Ousmane Bassi Konate, who served in the role for 34 years.
These circumstances between the Republic of Ivory Coast and the Republic of the Gambia is marked by the interest that the government of Ivory Coast has in the Gambia.
Donc, l'ouverture de ce consulat a aujourd'hui pour objectif de redynamiser les relations diplomatiques entre nos deux pays.
The reopening of the consular or the honorary consulate has the objective of redynamizing the bilateral relationship that exists between the two countries.
Donc, à travers la diplomatie de proximité,
through the diplomacy of proximity,
en procédant à la promotion économique, commerciale, touristique, culturelle et artistique.
By focusing on the promotion of economic, trade, and touristic, cultural, and artistic
He further added that the new office can be assured of his support. The diplomatic decree was handed over from Ambassador Toure to the newly appointed Honorary Council Papa Yusuf Njai. This will be to acknowledge his appointment and assist with his mandate.
Mr. Yusuf Njai, Honorary Council of the Republic of Cote d'Ivoire to the Gambia, it is with a lot of honor that I'm handing over to you the flag, the national flag of Cote d'Ivoire. As a former military, this means a lot to me, but I trust that you know what the flag symbolizes, that you will honor this flag and execute your functions with utmost dignity.
Electronic engineer, United Kingdom graduate who started with 10 computers, is the CEO of Unique Group. Papa Yusuf Njai was appointed last year as Honorary Council of Ivory Coast to the Gambia.
The Ivorian community is over 300 here, men, women, children. I met most of them today. My main focus in the next 12 months is to use the consulate as a platform for economic diplomacy. We hope that a stronger relationship between the two countries will pave a way for investment from both countries, playing a crucial role in the socio-economic development of our countries in terms of the levels of foreign direct investment between the two countries. You know, it's very abnormal that as West Africans or as Africans, there's very little trade among us. But we want to respond to the AFCTA, the Africa Continental Free Trade Area Act, and to take advantage of the ECOWAS ETL scheme. If you visit Cote d'Ivoire, you realize that, I'm not saying this because I'm the Honorary Consul, but I'm going to give you a few statistics. That it's a whole different ballgame in terms of industrialization, agriculture, telecoms, and many other areas. So we want to take advantage of the 300 million people in ECOWAS to create those jobs, transfer skills, and feel the ripple effects in our communities.
He added that this opportunity will bring improved economic cooperation between the two countries and their peoples. Addressing the gathering, the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Suleiman Omanjai, said he is confident that the new consul will execute his role as the newly appointed consular.
Therefore, congratulate him and to wish him Godspeed, and to tell him that he should really keep the flag flying, both from Cote d'Ivoire and the Gambia. And he also needs to make sure that he enhances the cooperation people to people. It is very important. There is a very good contingent of Ivorian nationals here in the Gambia, and they engage in various sectors of the productive economy of the country. There is also a large contingent of Gambians in Cote d'Ivoire. And really, I think with his intentions, we would see an enlarged cooperation, because not everything can be done by embassies and ministries of foreign affairs. Honorary consulates are very important because they reach aspects of the citizenry that embassies and ministries do not actually reach. So his work is really important, just like the work of every honorary consul is.
This new department is expected to strengthen the bilateral cooperation between the Gambia and Ivory Coast. Zainab Janjani for GRTS News.
And now the Young Writers Association of the Gambia, in collaboration with Alliance Francaise, recently held the semi-finals of the National Storytelling Competition. Students and art groups across the country attended the event, which also witnessed a display of talents in entertainment and education. Fatudiba picks up the rest of that story.
The first time introduced a storytelling competition as part of their efforts to better shape the arts industry in the Gambia. 10 of the participants from the semi-finals were shortlisted for the National Storytelling Competition finals. In his opening statement at the ceremony, President of the Young Writers Association, Mamadou Sow, highlighted the importance of storytelling as an art.
The aim of the storytelling competition is to promote the culture of storytelling in the Gambia among young people. The event also marks the 200th years anniversary of Banjul. One of the challenges facing the Gambia as a country is the poor attitude to reading and writing. With the due consideration of these huge challenges, the leadership of the Young Writers Association of the Gambia, led by Mr. Keba S. Juara and the delegation, thought it would be a great idea to organize the national storytelling competition in order to address these challenges.
Storytelling engages the mind and helps develop imaginations. As a specialized field in the arts sector, it teaches and inspires generations.
Historian, Professor Ibrahim Sek, called Buki and Gumbo, in which Professor Sek was talking about the role of storytelling as a form of resistance during the transatlantic slave trade. And because these African slaves, these Africans who were captured like Kunta Kinte and taken to the New World, at night, they had storytelling sessions, which slave masters did not like. But they used to hide.
The storytelling aimed to address critical developmental needs of our country and reignite love for our culture and values. Having analyzed the gist of the competition in 3 words, I would like to say that the National Storytelling Competition is intensely relevant, culturally distinct, and extraordinarily powerful towards nation building.
One after the other, participants narrated different stories, conveying culture, history, and values that unite the people.
And greed also makes a man to become a president.
Storytelling is a most important element of our lives. It's the most important element of our lives. And I'll give you 3 reasons. Number 1, it is through which we vehicle our culture. When you are a child, your grandma or your father will tell you stories, and through these stories, they will give you moral lessons. They will teach you how good people will always get good at the end, and how bad people will always get bad at the end.
Fatou Deba, for GRTS News.
Well, with that, we go on a short break and be right back with news beyond our borders. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now, in the internationals, the Tunisian Health Ministry says it has suspended the use of Johnson & Johnson's COVID-19 vaccines following a recent warning by the World Health Organization. The government says it took the decision to preserve the health of its citizens and ensure their safety. Adnan Chaouchi reports from the capital, Tunis.
To combat COVID-19, say health authorities are currently making inventory of the quantities of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, which will be destroyed in Tunisia.
Following the WHO and the US Food and Drug Administration warning, we decided to suspend the use of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. We did not suspend its authorization. This will not affect the vaccination campaign because we have other alternatives in Tunisia, which are the Pfizer, Moderna, Sinovac, and Sputnik vaccines.
Experts say the Johnson & Johnson COVID-19 vaccine poses a rare but serious risk of blood clots in people who received the jab. Hossam is a Johnson & Johnson vaccine recipient. He is concerned about the reported potential side effects as well as long-term health complications resulting from the shot.
People are terrified and they do not understand what's happening following many recent reports on health complications caused by the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. I attempted to get vaccinated to preserve public health and to save lives, and also not to put my own life at risk.
Some public health officials believe that suspending the use of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine may fuel vaccine hesitancy in the North African country.
It's true that the Johnson & Johnson vaccine can cause rare but serious blood clotting, but it's only 3 cases for 1 million people. Of these 3 cases, only 1 individual out of 2 million can die of this side effect. This is extremely limited if we compare it to the coronavirus death rate. The government's mismanagement of the situation will lead to more vaccine hesitancy.
More than 6.5 million Tunisians have received their full vaccine doses, and more than 1.3 million have received a 3rd dose. Over 36,000 individuals even got a 4th booster shot. Tunisia has recorded more than 28,575 COVID-related deaths since the outbreak of the pandemic in the country in March 2020. Some experts argue that health authorities in Tunisia could be overreacting to concerns raised about the safety of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, but the health ministry says it's protecting public health. The health situation in the country is stable, but the scientific committee is closely monitoring that, following the recent wave of COVID infections reported in different parts of the world. Abdel Shawishi, CGTN, Tunis.
Meanwhile, the price of food and non-alcoholic beverages in South Africa rose by 6% in April compared to a year earlier, according to new figures released by the country's National Statistics Agency on Wednesday. Chairperson Derek Matthews said in an interview with China Media Group that the conflict between Russia and Ukraine has already had a major impact on food and fertilizer prices. Let's take a listen.
Solution would be to get liquidity. The continent needs liquidity to be able to cope up with the increasing prices of foodstuff, especially things that were being imported from Ukraine. So they are saying that the International Monetary Fund should release more facilities so that they can be able to get more special drawing rights. We know in 2021, SDR that was given by the IMF to combat the COVID-19 pandemic was equivalent to about $650 billion, and Africa got only 5.8% of this, which was not enough. So now with this conflict that has come from Ukraine, Africa is saying that the IMF should look again because it's an emergency, so they should be able to provide more resources because it's an emergency. Also, secondly, the continent is not even talking about doing taxes right now. It's talking about finding supply of goods that are in shortage. For example, they're talking about having countries that are producing surplus to be able to sell to other countries within the continent. They have designed what they call the African Trade Exchange, which is a platform, a digital platform where countries will be able to advertise themselves and say what they're selling that has been in shortage so that other countries can buy from them. And also as a pool, that is as Africa, they can be able to pull together and buy these same grains and fertilizers from other countries, you know. So that's what they are looking at right now. The issue of taxes has not been talked about right now as a short-term measure. It is probably something that they will look into in the future in terms of domestic resource mobilization. Well, the issue has been addressed as the need for Africa to redefine its relationship with multinational agencies, and this includes the International Monetary Fund and other lending institutions. Could be as a group, could be the G20, G7, and also the IMF. So they are saying that it is time for some of the rules and regulations that are put for Africa to access funds to be redefined, because the UN Economic Commission for Africa says some of these rules that are working right now were formed in the 1940s, you know, and they don't apply now because the continent is getting crisis, for example, the Ukraine crisis that it's not even part of. So they are saying that it's time for the continent to, and for these institutions to agree to redefine these measures, because Africa has become a very important unit in the globe, because it has developing countries, and it is quite, an important unit that cannot be ignored and cannot be treated like it was in the 1940s and all that. So that is how they have approached it. I mean, the president of the African Union, who is the president of Senegal, Macky Sall, has said that he will be talking to some of these, he'll be attending the G7 summit, as well as talking to some of these countries to ensure that they push for this, because at the moment, if that is not addressed, then it becomes very unfair for Africa to fight or to even recover economically in such shocks, because nobody knows which other shock will come. And we remember that COVID-19 pandemic is not even over. So the countries are pushing for these countries.
Well, viewers, that brings us to the end of this bulletin. But before we take leave of you, here's a quick look at our top stories once again. The Minister of Children, Gender and Social Welfare, Fatou Kintesanyan, presides over the official launch of the 2022 State of the World Population Report on behalf of the Vice President. Local Government, Lands and Religious Affairs Minister Sheriff Abasanya embarks on a nationwide familiarization tour. Officials of the multi-million-dollar giraffe project say the initiative will transform the agriculture value chain into a more productive sector. A devastating fire outbreak has ravaged an entire shop in Dipakunda, leaving the owners in a desperate situation. Away from home, the Tunisian Health Ministry say it has suspended the use of Johnson & Johnson's COVID-19 vaccines following a recent warning by the World Health Organization. Elsewhere, the price of food and non-alcoholic beverages in South Africa rose by 6% in April compared to a year earlier. Well, viewers, that's all in this edition of the news. Until then, we come your way again tomorrow with more news. Enjoy the rest of our program. From myself and the entire news team, good evening.
fépp foo mën a dem tànn muy jiitu ak ci lu munti doon rawatina nag bi nga xamee ne dañ ñëw nag ci wàllu tànn soxna pour mu war a doon soxna soo xam ne moo war a jur sa yaayi doom yi kooku da nga ko war a tànn
ca wajur wa ngaa xool